Hello fellow Toastmasters, and welcome to the video review for project number 5 in the Advanced Communication Manual, Humorously Speaking. The project is also otherwise known as the Humorous Speech. And in this review, we'll be covering Samir Gupta's speech, The Differences Between Men and Women. You'll find that this review is useful if you're doing project number 5 in this manual, but it could also be a great reference if you are wanting to add a little extra laughter into your speech. This project has 3 objectives. The first objective is 1. Keep the audience laughing and entertained. The second objective is to use exaggeration as a humorous device. And finally, the third objective is to use your voice or body language in your delivery. Within this review, we'll cover how Samir addressed both or all of the 3 objectives. So let's go to the first one. The first one was keeping the audience laughing. This is very hard to do unless you have a very well-chosen topic, and that's exactly what Samir did. He chose a topic that is laden with stress points and tension that we all share. And if you're going to write a humorous speech, knowing that laughter is, in a sense, the relief of tension, it's best to choose a topic that is a source of stress for most of your audience. In Samir's case, he chose the battle of the sexes. If you have a significant other or maybe a sibling of the opposite gender, you'll know that there are certain pain points and little petty squabbles that you always have just because of the differences between men and women. Things like the contents of your fridge, or perhaps the organization of your washroom. And this is exactly what Samir did. If you've noticed in the speech, people are laughing throughout the speech because he was able to constantly dump out jokes and little side remarks. And that's because he had not just 3, but even 5 funny examples. And that was only because he chose a topic that there were just so many stress points to laugh at. So many areas where you have that tension, you just want to laugh at it to make it feel better, to feel better about those issues, in other words. So I encourage you, when you're choosing a topic for a humorous speech, make sure you choose one that is a stress point for most of your audience. Things like perhaps asking your boss for a raise, or what's another stress point? Maybe something along the lines of going to the dentist. All of these things have nervous energy to it, and it's a great opportunity to poke fun at those very topics. Let's move on to the second objective, which was using exaggeration as a humorous device. And this is something that Samir did very, very well at. He used 2 tools for exaggeration. The first tool was overstatement, and the second one was understatement. Let's look at some of the examples he used for overstatement. One of them was, women have 289 hygiene products on their bathroom countertop. I think most women don't have that much, but it's kind of funny to think about all those mysterious items that they carry. Another overstatement had to do with spending 3 hours in the beginning of his workday on Facebook before getting down to his work. I mean, that's an exaggeration again, an overstatement, more than what he actually does, I hope. And let's move over to the other side, understatement. Samir talked, for example, about, let's see, one of the examples had to do with his only research came from the woman he knows best, his mom. It almost suggests that he doesn't know many women. And in fact, we all know how popular Samir is with the ladies. So for that reason, you can see that you can use both overstatement and understatement. Let's move on to the final objective, and that is using his vocal variety. Samir does something very well, and that has to do with setting us up for the punchline. You'll notice he does that with taking a very logical type of vocabulary and a very logical chain of thought. For example, he'll do things in a list and say something like, blah, 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 we excuse ourselves from the table, we walk to the washroom, and then we do something else, and then bada-bum, he drops the punchline. Or another example would be, if this is the reason, else this is the reason, and bada-bum, then he drops the punchline again. Or he describes logical ideas like a formula. And what's even more impressive is not just the way that he sets us up with logic and then breaks our pattern with the punchline, but he can get away with saying extremely zany and crazy things. But it's even funnier because he sets us up with a very logical and almost dry tonality. And I think that's what we want to focus on now, is talk about how Samir uses his vocal tonality to set up the punchline. If you just listen not to the content of the words, but the way that Samir expresses them, he usually uses this kind of rhythm. And then we went huh, and then we went la, and then we went la, and then blah, blah, blah. Or he might actually stress the pause a little bit more. He says something like blah blah blah, and blah blah, blah blah blah. And you notice that little short, rushed, broken rhythm is where he drops the punchline. Example of this in his speech had to do with the women going shopping, and there was a little circle going around the aisles of the shopping area, eventually leaving the store and coming back in. And you'll notice that he says something like, and now she's moving to this aisle, and then she's moving to that aisle, and then she leaves. Oh wait a minute, she came back in. So again, there's a change of rhythm when he brings her back in. And that is, I think, the way that he delivers his punchline, and I think it's very effective. One other thing that I also encourage you to do is to use something that Samir does to kind of compound the punchline, and that's almost like a double punchline. He'll say something like, let's see, what was his example? It was something to do with, yes, and I think women have a really good time in the washroom. It must be something like a lounge. And then he says something like, at least that's what I guess or speculate. Or then maybe that's how I fantasize, or I forget how it was, but it had to do with the fact that he kind of put speculate, and it made people laugh. And then later on he dropped the next part of the punchline, which was or fantasize, which kind of compounded the humor of that original punchline, giving kind of a double punch to it. I think that wraps up this review. We're out of time. So when preparing for a humorous speech, let's try using these 3 keys. Try to choose a topic that's extremely full of stress, so that you can continually drop these stress-relieving jokes all throughout your speech. Secondly, use exaggeration, either over-exaggeration or understatement. Both of them will do great to add humor to your speech. And the final idea is to use a rhythm. In other words, set up your audience up with a pattern and then suddenly break it, either using a change in rhythm or a change in the topic. In other words, start with something like logical, as Samir did, and then break it suddenly with something crazy and zany that you wouldn't expect. And it might actually even work better when you don't overemphasize the zaniness of it with your tonality, but maybe with your rhythm instead. Well, that's all for now. I'll catch you soon. Thank you.